Hi, you've reached Call Your Publicist, your go-to source for PR moves, media moments, and brand strategies that keep businesses and people in the headlines for the right reasons. I'm one of your hosts, Jenna Guarneri, CEO and founder of JMG Public Relations.
And I'm your co-host, Alexandra Anastasio. Let's start talking.
Today, we're sitting down with Jennifer Ross, who is the co-founder of Swoon, a beverage brand with zero sugar and who creates unique spins on our favorite beverages like iced tea and lemonade. And today we're talking to her about entrepreneurism and how she launched a brand based off her type 1 diabetes.
So before we dive in, we have some of the product here and we're excited to try it, but you tell us which one, first, which is your favorite and which one do you suggest we start with?
So I love them all, but I will say the half and half is my favorite. I feel like it's like, I don't like something that's too sweet, but I don't like something that's too tart.
Okay.
So I would say kind of start with that. I think the pink lemonade is just like reminds me of childhood.
Right.
Like
Ooh,
that
it
is kind
does.
of one of the reasons we started this. I remember like sneaking the pink lemonade as a kid. It's a little bit sweet, but a little bit tart, like a pink lemonade.
Right.
And then the green tea, as I said, it's our first one and only one with caffeine, but it's
Okay.
like that of a Diet Coke. So it's not a hit yourself, like you're not going
Right.
to stay up all night. And it's a little bit of sweet. So it's not that like tart green tea
Okay.
flavor. It is more a little bit of an Arizona green tea.
Ooh, I do love an Arizona iced tea.
So it's sweet. Yeah.
Okay.
But it's with no sugar.
It's with no sugar.
I mean,
it is with
that
no
is
sugar.
fantastic.
No sugar.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Do you want some of this or do you want to open another one?
I don't know what to do. All
I feel
right.
like save for later. And
Yeah.
now
Okay, we're going to
we
start
have
with
one open.
this. Okay.
There we go.
Okay. Would you like some of this?
Sure.
Okay.
Oh, that is so good.
Topping you off.
Thank
There we
you.
go.
All right.
Cheers.
Cheers,
I drank
yeah.
too
Yes.
soon. I was too excited.
Cheers.
There we go.
Cheers.
Thanks for joining us, Jen.
Thanks so much for having me.
Of course. But I'd love to dive a little bit into
Yeah.
your world as a female entrepreneur. So, did you ever envision you would get to here? I mean, as entrepreneurs, we have such a trajectory to where we get to where we are. So, did you ever envision where you'll be today, where you are today?
I mean, yes and no. I think
Yeah.
it's obviously we all have dreams when you start something of like, you know, where you ultimately want to be. But I feel like sometimes you just can't like even see what the
Mhm.
next day is going to look like.
Right.
And so again, you know, when I was younger, I never thought I would like go into the beverage industry, like literally at all, or like that I would be, you know, going to prepping for meetings with Whole Foods and Target and things like that. So no, but I think you know, sometimes in my wildest dreams, like, oh, this is where I want to be. And then it's like when on my way here, you know, popping into a store and seeing it on shelf, I'm still like, oh, I can't believe that's real.
Yeah, and I
has
mean,
to be
I
so
was in the
cool.
supermarket this weekend, and I think it was ShopRite, and I saw a whole section for it.
Yeah.
And it also just makes me feel so proud of people I know. Like that's a huge accomplishment to have that kind of display in a supermarket. So you've done pretty good with Swoon.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I was going to say, if that was me, I'd be like, let's say, like you said, in ShopRite,
Yeah.
and I probably would stand there and be like, this is mine. This everybody.
No, it's
I
like
created
still like a
this.
pinch
Put her
me
signature.
moment.
Yes.
Like actually
or like
this
if you're checking out.
Yeah, it's funny. This weekend I was walking like in the West Village and I just saw a guy walking like drinking like the peach iced tea and I like almost wanted to stop him. Be like, so where'd you find it? Like,
Yeah.
why did you pick it up? And I'm like, but yeah, so like when you're in a store and you see it like in people's like shopping basket or picking it up on shelf, I like need to hold myself back from like saying something.
That's so cool. It's
Yeah.
almost like when an author sees their book in a bookstore,
Yep.
and then
Yeah.
they're also secretly signing them and then
Right.
putting them. Do you sign the back and put them back?
Hold on, I'm going to sign the can.
Yeah.
Right.
And then
It's a
have somebody go
big
find that.
Yeah. And so you started your career originally in finance,
Yeah.
correct? How did you get from finance to being an entrepreneur? Because this isn't your first company either.
No. So, you know, it's funny. It was actually my first job was like a few blocks away from here. So like coming down,
back
I
to the
had all the
neighborhood.
memories.
Yes.
But I think that was a great job because it kind of just learning like basics of business, finance, which again, we use so much, like is so much a part of our business today. But I think I quickly realized like I really liked building something. Like I
Right.
didn't like being at a huge company. I liked kind of having an idea and like being able to bring it to life. And so it definitely was a transition. I never was like, oh, I want to like go into the food and beverage industry, or even when I was there, was in real estate that it was like, oh, I now want to pivot to this. It kind of just evolved over time. But again, I think everything that I learned from my first job, like I bring into my job almost daily today.
Can you, it's funny, you just said something that just sparked a question. Can you now envision ever going back
No.
to that? I didn't have to finish it.
No.
She's
In a
like,
word, no.
absolutely
That was
not.
a hung no.
No.
Because, when you're like, when you go from, let's say, working for somebody, now you're an entrepreneur, it's your business. Like, I can't imagine ever saying like, nah, you know what, I'm just going to go back and work for somebody.
Yeah, I think it's that. It's also like going back to like a big corporate like company. I think what I love about this is like it's something different every day.
Right.
Like I don't know what the day is going to look like. I get to touch so many different pieces, which is what really, really excites me because I get to see like really, truly all parts of the business.
And isn't it true too, as an entrepreneur, because your trade is finance, that's what you studied, and we have, like, for me, it's PR, that's what I study. But as an entrepreneur, you have to learn a little bit about everything.
Oh yeah.
And every department. And the only ways to really figure it out is as you go, you just figure it out.
Yeah, I think it's definitely figuring out, but it's also surrounding yourselves with really smart people. And so definitely we couldn't do this without our team.
Right.
So again, I always think like I don't want to necessarily be the smartest person in the room, like, and really rely on their expertise, their experience to guide us and to say like, this is what we should do. This is what we're seeing, and really becomes like a collaborative decision making.
Yeah, well, it's so important to surround yourself with like-minded people. Do you also find that aside from having that awesome tribe, that you also have, say, networks of other entrepreneurs and like-minded individuals and that sort of?
Yeah, I think it's, the food and beverage industry is so interesting because I think people are really welcoming. Like it's not sharp elbows. People are really collaborative. I feel like we found, advisors, just people in our network that like are so willing to like pick up our call kind of for like anything. And that is super, super helpful. People that have like been there, done it before, in it now, in the trenches, just to bounce things off of like, hey, like this is what we think. Like, can I like sanity check that like you would think about it this way, or like if you think about this differently, why? So yeah, we definitely, it's our internal team but also external team too that we've built that is really helpful.
And I find that too, that's important for us too as we grow, is just to get outside perspective,
right?
Because you don't know what you don't know.
Exactly.
And it's important to ask.
So I have another question. I have a lot of questions, but
she's an interviewer.
No, but I'd love to ask this because we're talking about it. I mean, when you talk about it, the passion that you have for it just comes out. You can tell. And then when you said you worked in finance, working for a big corporation, but I want to like take it back from when you were a young kid, right? So we all, as kids, have that. I don't know if I call it a dream, but there's something we think we're going to do when we get older, right? We might, whatever path that is. We don't always follow it. Sometimes we do. So roll back when you were a kid, did you ever think you would become like your own, like an entrepreneur, be in this role, I guess?
I honestly like really didn't know what I wanted to do. I think like when I was a kid, I wanted to be a fireman. Like I literally
I love hearing what people, because we all have these big dreams because we're little, and there's things that you think like that's so exciting.
I don't know, like I just like remember like I had this like red bucket that I would like put on my head. Not that firemen wear red hats, but they wore the hats, and I guess the fire trucks are red. But like that's what I thought I wanted to do.
Right.
But then as we really started this out of a true personal need. I'm type 1 diabetic. I was diagnosed when I was 6. So, ever like not at that age, but as I got a little bit older, really realized I wanted to like give back in some way or help sort of the diabetic community. I knew quickly on that I wasn't going to be the doctor. I wasn't going to be the researcher. Like that was not what I was going to do. But the reality is diabetes is so much part of your lifestyle. And so I always felt like, okay, like how can I help on that? Again, I wasn't like, I need to create a beverage or I need to help something and do something in food and beverage. But I always kind of thought eventually at some point I would do something related.
Gotcha.
But again, it really kind of did just like fall into this, if you will, really starting as the consumer and like looking at something for myself and then really realizing like there's actually a big business behind it.
I was going to say that's another thing too. When you're in it, right? Like you see there's maybe not a lot out there, and then it sparks that creative thought like, hey, you know what? There's nothing for me, or I haven't found the right, whatever it is, product. Why not create it myself? Like, so I think that's.
Yeah. And that definitely was it. Like, I think you've seen kind of, what was happening in like flavored waters and then like sodas. And it's like, again, like I still have memories of like sneaking like pink lemonade as a 6-year-old because it tasted great. It was Minute Maid, and because it was what my friends were drinking, or like growing up drinking Diet Peach Snapple. But like as an adult, that's not what I wanted. And I knew I shouldn't be having Minute Maid lemonade that had so much sugar in it. And it was like, okay, there's now been so much done sort of in like modern soda with flavored water. Like nothing has touched really the tea category. And those were drinks that I kind of grew up drinking, but kind of stopped drinking it as an adult.
Oh, 100%. And so you and your co-founder Christina, so you guys both went to Harvard Business School together, and you guys are really friends that
Yes.
started companies together, because there was a company before called Be Mixed.
Yeah.
So what were some of the challenges you guys faced as you were on your entrepreneurial journey together and as entrepreneurs in general?
I mean, when we started, like, we didn't have any experience in food or beverage. And I think that, like, helped and hurt us. I think it hurt us in the sense of, like, we had no idea what we were doing. So, like, but I think what was really lucky is, like, we knew that. We didn't think we had all the answers. So we were really willing to ask for help, to ask for mentors. But also, like, because we didn't have the experience, we didn't question, like, about doing things differently because we didn't know what had been done before. So we didn't kind of come to it with preconceived ideas. But I think kind of as anyone does, like, you do question it, like, should we be the ones doing this? Like, how do we actually do this? Like, should we enter a space that we have no experience in? And so it really kind of was like taking those like incremental successes, like each one, and be like, okay, yep, seeing this, like, let's move on to the next piece. Like, definitely a reason for us to exist. But yeah, we had challenges for sure along the way.
So as a serial entrepreneur, was there something you learned that you wanted to do differently from company 1 to company 2? Was there a lesson you took out?
You know, I think like one of the things that we've really learned and I think we've put into practice like much better with Swoon is like really listening to our customers. Again, like we, you know, having your true north, like we're zero sugar, like we're not going to change on that. That's the reason for being, but listen to customers. Like we actually did a reformulation because it didn't taste great. Like it tasted good for some people that had like bought into like the already like monk fruit zero sugar, but like as we just heard it more, like reading the Amazon reviews, like we just felt like it needed to taste better. And so we made that change pretty quickly. It was hard, but doing that, I think kind of relooking at the packaging, we thought the packaging was amazing, but it's like, what else can we do to make it brighter and pop on shelf? So really kind of continuing to always like listen to our customers, but like stay true to like our core beliefs as well.
You know, that's something similar we heard from one of our past guests, Dr. Jag PP, is talking about how to consistently keep reevaluating and making things better and always learning as you go, because that's the best way to keep a brand going, especially nowadays. Everything's so competitive.
Yes.
So you have to, and you have to pay attention to your customer, like you said.
Yeah, you have to constantly be looking at data, listening to customers, like seeing like what we can be doing differently, learning from the successes and how do we replicate that, learning from like the things that don't work and saying, why didn't that work? How do we have to do things differently?
I love that you started this with one of your close friends. Like, to me, that is a story in itself, because it's not like you were just two business partners who came together and said, hey, let's do this. When I was reading a little bit about the two of you and how you started, it kind of reminded me a little bit of Jenna and myself in terms of like with the business, right? I think we were at dinner and I had said to her, when we were talking about JMG, and I said, you know, you don't have a content department. You obviously have these clients, and why not take it to the next level? And then next thing I know, I think it was like the next day, I get a text and it was like all these ideas.
Like,
and I was like, did you go to sleep? But I think that's great, right? And that's your entrepreneurial spirit. And then even with the podcast, I would say to her, I think you should do a podcast. And then it just was born from conversation. So was there an aha moment where you and Christina were like, all right, you know what? Let's just do this. Let's just launch. And first, obviously, with Be Mixed and then with Swoon. But was it like born out of a conversation? Like I always wonder how things were born.
No, it like literally like it was born in her apartment, like originally back with the cocktail mixers. Like Christina's Cuban, so she was making a mojito and I'm like looking at her, she's like pouring in all of this sugar and I'm like, I can't drink that. And so then we're like, wait, why like does a zero sugar kind of cocktail mixer not exist? So it really started there. Then it like went from there going to Whole Foods and be like, why not? Then we're like, oh, well, that's not actually how things are made. You don't make them in your kitchen, things like this. But then, you know, from that, we then started working on what was Swoon syrup, which was a monk fruit based simple syrup. And I think that's when we originally met because we were actually working and, you know, selling it and use it like into coffee shops and using it as a sweetener, and using it in cocktails. And always when we would try it on people, it was in a lemonade because it was water, freshly squeezed lemons and Swoon syrup. And then COVID hit. And so we're like, wait a second. Okay. Coffee shops don't exist anymore. This isn't going to be what we're going to do, but kind of kept going back to like the fact that customers are like, can you bottle this lemonade? Like,
Right.
can I have this?
Mhm.
And that was kind of like this aha moment of like, oh, I think there is something here. Like, then we really, you know, kind of took the business approach of like looking at like the tea and lemonade category and being like, there has been no innovation here.
Right.
And like, there's 40 grams of sugar
Ooh.
in most of these lemonades. Like,
Wild.
that just doesn't need to happen.
Right. And so there's so many stories we hear out of COVID of how companies pivoted, new ideas,
Yep.
innovations, but even the way you're speaking is just such an entrepreneurial spirit. Like you always had that in you. Did you know growing up that you had this bit of entrepreneurism, or is it just did it evolve in time?
No, I think so. I mean, I feel like as a kid, I was like, you know, like putting on like plays for my like family and like charging tickets, or like would, you know, I remember like, you know,
Hustler from the early times.
exactly.
We love it.
Like
We love it.
I like, you know, I grew up in the city, but like, okay, so I had a lemonade stand, but I also made cards that I would sell on the street. Like,
Wow.
like why would anyone buy those? Or like these like plastic flowers. So like, again, like always like kind of
Yeah.
creating like quote unquote businesses
Yeah.
without really ever like thinking about it.
Oh, how fun. What great stories.
Yeah, but I think that's when you have that creative mindset, whatever it is, whether it's, you know, creating cards or you said creating the flower, it's your mind is, it's always an overdrive. You're always
Yeah.
thinking of like,
Mhm.
what can I do? How can I serve this community or that community? So I love that.
Yeah. And now I'm curious as two friends, and
Mhm.
we're two friends, how do you separate talking about work when not at work?
I don't think we do. I don't think we separate.
We
We
don't.
always joke that we're like literally always in communication, like text, email, Slack, in like Instagram, like all at the same time, and like all having different conversations on like
That's true.
different threads. So like, and it like very seamlessly goes from work to not work
Yeah.
stuff. So I don't
get
think like
it.
we definitely don't have a divide
Right.
and like work time, fun time. But I think that is what makes it so nice is that
Mhm.
there is such overlap
Oh,
across
fun.
both.
And I'm thinking just even for us, like our Instagram feed is all restaurants, and like that is the forum for our Instagram.
But I was gonna say, I think it's like we might be, let's say you mentioned Slack, like sending a message
Yeah.
about work on the same. I may be like, oh, look, there's a gluten-free restaurant. Hold on,
Yes.
let me send this to Jenna. This, and then we're always like, we gotta try that. Okay, we're gonna try that.
I'm like,
or
remember
then
that
I'm
restaurant
texting
sent
you
me?
about something
Right,
else.
something else. Exactly. You're
And
like
it's all
all
over.
at the same
But we're
time, all about
following.
different
Right.
things. Yeah.
And then it's like, you know what you're talking about. And even if we go out, let's say if we grab a bite to eat dinner, and yeah, we'll talk a little bit about work, and then it's like, or then we'll talk about something else, you know, totally non-work
Mhm.
related.
Yeah.
Or we'll talk about work prior to JMG, meaning when I used to freelance for a magazine and we used to go to events together and we would do, you know, you were doing the PR, we'd be at the events, and maybe then we're reminiscing about something. So it always, I think, full circle comes back
Mhm.
at some point to work, but it's never like where you sit down, let's say after hours, if you guys go out and grab a bite, where you're like, okay, first we have to do this, and then we have, like, we
Right.
don't talk
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that.
Right. Right.
Because event, you do need at some point some sort of cutoff, but I think when you can get inside the mindset of each other, which
Mhm.
sounds like you guys, if you're on multiple platforms
Right.
having multiple conversations, you can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I think that's part of how the relationship and the partnership works so well, because you have that dynamic and you just balance and, you know, feed off of each
Right.
other too. And I think too, as entrepreneurs, our personal and work lives are so blended, but we also love what we do. So that's why it makes sense that it blurs for you guys and
Mhm.
it just works.
It does.
Yeah.
I love that. Now I have another question because I'm not an entrepreneur and
Okay.
I've never started a business, but you never know, there's always time. But having a boss and then being the boss, obviously two different roles, which you both
Mhm.
can attest to, because before launching JMG,
Mm-hmm.
you worked for an agency. Same here, not PR.
I did.
But-
That was one of my first internships,
Really?
actually. Yes.
I remember
All right.
you telling me
I
this.
didn't
now.
Yes, it was.
Yes.
So I can.
All right,
remember
so now you
now.
can. But as going from having a boss to being the boss, was
Yeah.
there any challenges that you faced, or a biggest challenge you would say in a leadership role? Because now you have a team of people who obviously work with you. How was that?
You know, I
taking
think like
that
one of the like
change?
biggest like changes early on, or like something that I realized like wasn't expecting is like, again, I like speak my mind. I say what I'm thinking, and I forget like then as a boss, people like take what I say
Right.
and they're like, oh, we got to do that. And I'm like, oh, no. Sometimes I'm just like spitballing here.
Right.
And so I do realize there is a difference of like when you're just like talking like sort of as colleagues versus
Right.
when you're talking as a boss. and have to kind of sometimes recalibrate that of like, okay, this is a conversation of like, this is a brainstorm versus like, this is me saying what I think we should be doing.
But that's so smart of you to realize that, because I did that literally today, a few hours ago, where I was talking. I was like, wait, this is me just brainstorming out loud, just like putting it together. I'm not actually serious.
Right. And
idea.
again,
It's like,
I
you
have
say
to,
it.
I definitely don't always like think about that
'Cause you
when
have to
I'm
take-
talking,
right, it's hard
but I
to.
do have to sometimes take the step back of like, oh, what I'm saying. Like I
Yeah.
need to be clear.
Right, because as a leader, it's you always have to think about how you're saying it and how it's perceived, and you always have to. Sometimes it's hard to get ahead of that because you're just like excited and ahead of the moment, and then sometimes you have to take a step back. But that's a big part of the leadership, is really realizing without them saying how that might be perceived
Right.
and how to change that so that way they understand the scope of it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm curious. Let's go back to Swoon really quick. Why the name Swoon? What does it represent? How did you choose that?
Yeah, I think the idea is like you're like swooning over the fact that it's not sugar, but tastes like sugar. And just like that feeling. I think when you hear the word swoon, everyone like it does like evoke a feeling in you. I think it also feels good to say. It's like the SW. So again, but it really was like we wanted something that was like more about a feeling than just like a product.
And I actually love it because obviously now it's so important for brands to have that one word that sticks.
Mhm.
And swoon is such a good word. I like the way you came about it. Did you guys sit and brainstorm? Like, what was that brainstorm?
Oh
like?
yeah, for sure. I mean, we had so many ideas. It's like funny to like we sometimes laugh of like, oh my God, what if we had gone with this name? like, could you believe
wanna hear
that?
that.
I was gonna say, were there any other front runners?
There were like yes, there were so many different front runners at the time, but I do think like Swoon really does like it encaptures everything that we wanted in the brand.
It's beautiful. And the branding is absolutely
Oh my God,
stunning.
these cans are gorgeous.
Yeah. So you said this was this variation, the ones that you updated?
Yeah, so we actually so when
Oh,
we
this
did
is the
this
Riley
yeah,
Arnold.
that's the Riley Arnold can.
Wanna talk
When
about
we did a reformulation, we actually went into printed cans to make them more sustainable. And you have to use less color. So we're like, okay, we'll just do like a variation on the art. But we ended up taking like a total refresh to it because we really wanted it to stand out and pop on shelf. And really make sure that like we're communicating the points that we care about.
When you were creating what the visuals for it, were there other brands that inspired you? Did you take any inspiration from other brands, or was it all where you're like, nope, I'm creating this whole vision?
No, I mean, I think it's hard. You can't not take kind of
Right.
inspiration for other brands. I mean, we spent so much time in grocery store seeing like what we were attracted to on shelf, just standing there watching other people, like what they were pulling off, or like at each iteration, we would, print them out, wrap them on cans, put them on shelf. Like, again, like you think it can look great on paper, but it's like very different than when it's like actually
Right.
on shelf. So, but we really wanted something that was like fun, didn't take itself too seriously, wasn't, too formal. So like those were all the elements that we wanted in the brand.
And I have to say too, they must, and I've seen it, stick out from any other brand on the shelf. Like the color, it just makes you want to grab it.
Mhm. Yeah, we wanted it to like
approachable.
stick out, to be fun, to be refreshing, all of those things.
Mhm. Now I'm curious too. So as a female entrepreneur, so we work with obviously a lot of females. We love our female clients, and I'm wondering too, just from knowing from so many, their obstacles they've had as female founders. There's some, not to say you, just anyone in general, that some, for instance, had trouble raising funds while they were being pregnant in the VC space, right? So there's instances of that.
Mhm.
Did you ever have anything similar to that, or just in general as a female entrepreneur, any kind of hurdles you had to combat?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think the beverage industry is typically like male dominated, especially on the distributor side, and especially from people that have like done it before. So I think kind of being a woman, being younger, like we were just different. And so I think that was definitely a challenge. I will say though, I think we knew that it was going to be going into it, but we really have worked with great partners who have embraced us, who have wanted to be mentors to us. But of course, you all kind of, no matter the reason, you're always going to like come across people that are difficult for whatever the reason is.
Right. For other female founders, or just getting started in whatever space it is, whether it's the food and beverage or any other space, do you have any advice to them? What would you tell somebody who came to you as a mentor?
I think you can't like let the perfect get ahead of the good. Like you kind of just have to try. At some point, you're going to have to just make the leap.
Right.
Like, and I think it is different for everyone of like, what do they individually need to like believe?
Right.
But you're not going to have it all. You're never going to have like the perfect data, the perfect whatever. At some point, you just have to try something
Right.
and kind of know that you can make tweaks. Like it is not, nothing is like indefinite. You can always go back. You can always make changes. Some changes are easier than others, but you kind of just got to jump in.
Gonna rip that Band-Aid.
Just gotta do it.
I was gonna say, I know a lot of times we talk about like perfect, like something just being perfect, and that's so unrealistic. It's probably like, just take that chance. There's opportunity to, like you said, tweak it, do something as you're going along. So I think that's some good advice. Now, you just mentioned when we were talking about this can, the Riley Arnold one. And so Swoon does a lot of collaborations. Obviously, you had this one, which huge success. You did big name partnership. There was the Barbie movie. That was a really pretty can. I wish I had that on the table. And you also did Nescafe and Chamberlain Coffee. So what is your strategy when choosing a collaborator? And what's the key to making sure that that final product like this pops and feels authentic to yourself as the brand, as well as the person you're collaborating with?
I mean, I think you said it. I think the first piece is it has to be authentic. Like it can't just be, oh, let's go with like who we think is like the coolest brand, but like, does it make sense? Does it make sense for us? Right. Does it make sense for kind of the other brand or the other person? Riley Arnold was so perfect because she's type 1 diabetic. And she was diagnosed when she was 19. She's, you know, one of the lead dancers on Dancing with the Stars. But the fact that she was diabetic, so she needed this product. She had this product before we kind of got to her on it. So again, it really did just make sense. And she also, then again, as we were like thinking through, like, what flavor do we want to work on? Like, she was like, I just feel pink. And like, that is, it's like when you meet her, when you see her, you're like, oh yes, pink lemonade really does resonate with you. So I think that it was that with Emma Chamberlain, she had Chamberlain coffee. And so again, it was, and she was launching a matcha. So it really made sense to do like a product collaboration on a matcha lemonade.
Right.
So again, it really, and I think if it starts authentic, that's when it feels authentic. I think it's really hard to kind of, if you're making up the reason for doing it, to feel kind of really true to yourself.
There needs to be that connection. And obviously, like you just said, with Riley Arnold, there was that connection even before this even came about. So it just effortlessly makes sense to do that. Do you have a favorite out of any of the campaigns you've done?
I mean, it's so hard.
It's like trying to choose your favorite child.
Trying to choose your favorite kid. Like, again, like, it's so hard. I don't think I have a favorite. Again, the Riley Arnold one is like so recent. So, you know, it was so fun shooting with her in studio. Like, just she is like so bubbly and it's like infectious to be around her. And again, hearing her story of like, you know, she was diagnosed when she was like 19, like she thought her like life as a professional dancer was going to be over. And again, just hearing the fact that like, no, now she's actually on Dancing with the Stars. Like, it hasn't let her hold her back. Was just so awesome to hear.
And I also love that you appreciate the fact of making these partnerships and feel natural and make them make sense. Because we were talking recently, we had a conversation about how some brands just force things just to get be a part of the conversation, be a part of the trend. And if it's not a natural fit, why bother? Because it just looks off-brand if you're doing it. So there needs to be that natural connection in order for your audience, it to make sense for your audience. Yeah,
definitely.
So is there something you look for when you're specifically looking for partnerships? Is it you're kind of just paying attention and you're looking for a new partner and you're like, what kind of resonates with you?
Again, it's really kind of like what resonates and like what makes sense. Like, it's like, we don't want to like fit like, you know, something that you're like, wait, why would you ever work with them? I do like things where that do make you think, that you're like, oh, I would have never thought, but like there is a reason, but there does have to be like an authentic reason for like why we would work with them.
That makes sense. Cause like you said, we were having this conversation and I think it was born out of the comment of like, you don't have to be all things to all people, meaning you don't have to put yourself in every conversation. If it doesn't make sense for you as a brand or as a company, don't feel you have to jump on a trend because somebody else is doing it. So I think when you don't put yourself in that situation, then you really stay authentic to who you are. And I think your audience picks up on that and they can feel that.
For sure. And then the brand itself has represented so much inclusivity. So I'm curious for you now, as the successful founder of a product for people with type 1 diabetes, but really everyone out there, just for a healthier lifestyle, is there anything you would say to that 6-year-old self going through this process, even first finding out you had diabetes, right? Just as a kid with that, is there anything you would tell your 6-year-old self?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like whether you're diagnosed with diabetes or like whatever it is, like it's going to be okay. I mean, like I said, I don't mean that lightly, but more as I
Right.
do think kind of no matter what, like things can feel so overwhelming,
Right.
but things, you know, you kind of got to take it like one step at a time, like especially for like other newly diagnosed diabetics. Like I could definitely say like it is going to be okay. Like your life, like you feel like, oh my God, it's not going back to normal. I have to make all of these changes. Like, sure, you do have to make some changes, but your life isn't over. Like you're going to be fine. You're going to be able to do all the things that you want to do. And I think that's true in so many things. Like, you know, I think, sure, you might do things differently, but you can still do a lot of the things.
Yeah, and I think that's a great lesson for everyone, because I think everyone, especially if entrepreneurs, they hit that roadblock. It's not letting that stop you, just
Mhm.
pushing through, because things are always better on the other side. So
Yeah.
sticking with the journey.
Yeah.
You also mentioned that when you first, when you started, you didn't know much about the industry, right? Because it wasn't something that you had worked in prior. So from that first launch with VMix till now, have you seen changes within the industry? Is there anything that stands out for you or surprises you about the food and beverage industry?
Yeah, definitely. There's so many changes. I think, you know, obviously we're zero sugar. And I
Right.
think what we've seen is like, that's not a trend. Like no doctor is going to come back and say like, you know what, add more sugar back into your diet.
Right.
And like, we've also never said don't have sugar. We're just saying
Right.
you don't need to drink your sugar. But I do think, especially now with all the GLP-1s and conversation around metabolic health, it's just becoming like more part of people's conversation
Right.
and realizing like what can they do to kind of make their overall health better. Like it's not just about weight loss or
Right.
things like that or being quote unquote skinny. It is how to just make your overall health better.
Right, being more mindful about what you're putting into your body.
Definitely. I was going to say, even like, I know if I go to the supermarket and I'm looking at things and I'm immediately turning it around, just seeing, okay, what is on the back? What am I reading? Like, I think, you know, when we were kids, I'm sure my mother wasn't thinking about, like, we grew up drinking apple juice. I loved apple juice.
Yeah.
Now, if I look at the back of apple juice and I see the sugar, I'm like, whoa, maybe that's why I was bouncing off the walls.
Well, now everyone is scanning the labels.
Oh, yeah, with
Yes.
the Yuka app.
Yes, I never know the name of it. Yes.
But yeah, so I think, you know, that it is a part of the conversation now more than it was back then. I mean, if I asked my mother today, I don't think there was that conversation
No,
going
it
on,
wasn't.
No.
right?
No.
So like you said, you wanted to drink as a kid, the pink lemonade, the Minute Maid, because everybody was drinking it. And it was, I remember there was the once, I'm really going to date myself, in the can, the tube, you like twisted it and it came
yeah,
out.
yeah.
I mean,
That
God
was
knows
fun.
what was in
Yes,
that
correct.
thing. But we, you know, now people are more aware
Yeah.
of what's going into their
Yeah.
foods, what's going into their drinks. So I think that's great. You did an interview, you gave an interview to Bristol Farms, and you said, I loved this. Entrepreneurship is a roller coaster with the highest of highs and the lowest of lows, because everything feels consequential and personal. So in one word, what does entrepreneurship mean to you? Maybe it's more than one word. I feel like I maybe wasn't fair in giving you just one word.
I mean, I think I said it. It's a roller coaster.
Right.
I think like you don't totally know what to expect.
Right.
There are going to be a lot of highs. It's going to be lows, but you kind of just got to go. You got to get on the ride and just go and see what happens.
And then for future entrepreneurs, what are some red flags they should pay attention to when they're in the early stages of building their business, or even some green flags?
You know, I think it doesn't mean that like business doesn't work, but I would say like if people can't explain what the product is or like what they're doing, then I would say kind of relook at that. Like if you're having a hard time explaining it, if you're like told someone and they can't explain it, like that's going to be a hard thing to do. It's not to say the product doesn't work, but maybe the positioning or what it is, you know, you want to kind of try and limit some of the education pieces. You know, and some of the green flags, I think it's like not everything needs to work, but like if you can hone in on some things that really are working and that you can replicate, I would say keep going for it.
That's awesome. And so tell us what's next. What's on the horizon for?
You know, this year it's really about like continuing growing our distribution, getting more awareness. We have some new fun flavors and, you know, limited time offerings coming out next year in 2026. And yeah, some more partnerships. So really excited about all of it.
That's awesome. Oh, I can't wait.
Yeah, and so thank you so much for joining us. I've loved this conversation. Where can people find Swoon, and then how can people follow you on social?
Oh, yes. Well, you can follow us on Instagram at Swoon. You can buy us at Whole Foods nationwide, at Target, at Kroger, of course, on Amazon. Or if you go to our website, Taste Swoon, you can see a list of all the stores near you.
fantastic.
Thank you so much, Jen.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.